everyone, this is the Film Buff Gamer Guy, and I'm back making videos now. More videos. I took a week-long vacation, but I am back. But anyway, there have been news that came out related to Sega and Sonic the Hedgehog that just came out, which I thought they were April Fools. I thought one of them was an April Fool's joke, which Sega had bought Rovio, which made the Angry Birds games on mobile phones, which if you are Gen Z, if you were born in 2000, around that time, you might have played Angry Birds at some point in your life when you were a kid, which I never had a phone or an iPad or anything like that until I was older, but I borrowed other people's phones and iPads to play Angry Birds before. I've done that, and I think I have an Angry Birds set thing I had when I was a kid, but that's off topic. So, Sega had purchased Rovio, which is the same people that made Angry Birds. And Sega sold the company for over around $775 million, which is close to around $1 billion, and Sega is a $4 billion corporation, which Sega used to be a lot larger back in the 90s, but because of the amount of failed consoles that Sega produced, with the PS2 being more popular than the Dreamcast, was the final killing blow for Sega. And Sega became a third-party company. And Sega's a much smaller company than it was back in the 90s, but it's still around still. But it's not as big as other gaming corporations like Activision or Ubisoft or other companies. It's still well known and people still know about Sega, but Sega doesn't have that much revenue. And Sega spent 1/4 of that revenue, of their revenue, on a mobile game company. Back in 2013, 2014, like a lot of game companies like Ubisoft and Sega and other companies and Activision thought about making mobile games because it'll get the casual market and Rockstar as well to get into their games when game companies realized that a lot of people don't. The mobile gaming market is completely different than consoles and PC market. And most people that play mobile games and don't play consoles or PC, like, they don't get emotionally attached. Man, I remember that I used to play Candy Crush back in 2015. Those were good times. Like, they don't feel nostalgic. Like, the mobile game market is different than the kind of market on consoles and PC. So just to point that out there. But the only company that still makes mobile games still out of the big corporations is Sega. And which is a weird choice. Like, Sega could have bought an indie game developer, but that makes games on consoles and PC, like indie games and all of that. But after all the other indie developers that Sega bought Rovio, the same company that made fucking Angry Birds, which is a weird choice. Like, I'm not angry like somewhat other people were, but what Sega did quote is that it's more of a friendly acquisition, which means that it's not anything like a Microsoft when Microsoft bought Activision or bought Rare. So to have an advantage over their competitors. It's not that. Sega's been out of the console market for more than 20 years now, so it's not that. Because I think what game companies do from time to time is they buy another game developer so that their games can be exclusive to their platform, so they can have an advantage over it. That's why Microsoft bought Activision. That's one example. Or Microsoft bought Rare, because Rare was like the Pixar of Nintendo, and Rare would make banger after banger after banger, and Microsoft took that from Nintendo, so Microsoft would have an advantage. But the Sega and Rovio buyout was more of a friendly, like, hey, let's work together, let's make money together with our Angry Birds and our Sonic the Hedgehog and all that, and that was the case. And I'm not mad that Sega bought Rovio. It's just an unusual sort of choice to make. Like, Sega's gonna make more AAA level Angry Birds games or something like that, which I really wonder. I'm just morbidly curious about what Sega would do with the Angry Birds franchise, because I don't give a crap about any of the other Angry Birds games at all. Which, yeah, and the only thing I'm pissed off about Angry Birds is Rovio got rid of the classic Angry Birds, which I did download before, I think a year ago, but then they just removed that, so yeah, Sega bought Angry Birds. Angry Birds is now a Sega property now. And then next is that Sega just announced that the Knuckles the Ecidna Paramount Plus series is going to come out, which I don't know when, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be 2024 is when the Knuckles TV show, Knuckles the Ecidna TV show, would come out. It's going to come out around the same time as Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which is coming out Christmas of 2024. And it's kind of like Star Wars, where The Mandalorian and The Rise of Skywalker came out a month from each other. One TV show and one movie. It's kind of like that kind of release schedule. That's what I would be predicting. Which, I like Idris Elba. Like, if Idris Elba would be... If I want a black Bond, if there's a black Bond, then it has to be Idris Elba. But the only problem I have with Idris Elba being Bond is his age. He's as old as Daniel Craig is, so... But that's off topic. I'm always morbidly curious about, like, Sonic the Hedgehog related projects. Like, I'm always morbidly curious. I saw the first two Sonic movies in theaters, and I thought the first one kind of suffered from being the first one in the franchise. The first one has a lot of glaring issues, but the second one's better, though. And in Sonic 3, there were rumors and concept art that leaked that Sonic 3 is going to be a darker movie compared to the other two, to the point of a PG-13 rating. And it won't hurt Sega if they do that. It would be an interesting social experiment, because Sonic the Hedgehog has a huge adult following. And there are a lot of parents with kids that take their kids to Marvel movies. Like, I went and saw Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, and there were some kids that are 9, 10, 11 years old. So, I think a PG-13 Sonic movie can still make money, because the combination of two things, which, when I was a kid, I was never allowed to watch PG-13 movies. I would watch a few. Like, I watched School of Rock, but that was about it. But I wasn't allowed to watch most PG-13 movies, until I was 12. when I was in middle school. That was when I was allowed to. But now back to Knuckles. It's gonna be based on Knuckles training a young Echidna warrior, and it's gonna be more about the origin story of Knuckles, and Sonic and Tails would be in the show. And I'm morbidly curious about this show. Like, even if a Sonic project turns out to be mediocre or straight up shit, I would go and play or watch it. Because I don't know, I'm just weird, but which I thought like the Knuckles show would be based on Knuckles Chaotix, but that would be too expensive, and because you have to do all the CGI for Vector the Crocodile and Charmy Bee and all that, so it's not going to be based on Knuckles Chaotix. And Sega revealed an Instagram post, the Sonic the Hedgehog Instagram. They showed they show Knuckles' hat and the Knuckles logo and say that, hey, we're making it. And I thought that the Knuckles show was canceled, but nope, it's not. But I might get Paramount Plus, which is so annoying that there's so many streaming services. Like, why can't there just be a 4-party system like game consoles? But it's that way we won't have to subscribe to different streaming services. Like, I'm glad that game platforms have a 4-party system, if you count PC, and mobile doesn't count. Which I'm glad that it's a 4-party system, because having a lot of things be exclusive to one another is just inconvenient. But I love Idris Elba, and I think he's a good actor. I think a Knuckles TV show can work really well. I think it can be fun. But I'm not excited. I'm just morbidly curious. So those are my thoughts on Sega news and the upcoming Sega projects and all that. So, I love Idris Elba, and I think he's a good actor. I think a Knuckles TV show can work.